Well, hello there, Broncos country, and welcome in for another episode of Building the Broncos. I am, of course, Carl Dumler, and joining me, as always, Mr. Nick Kendell. Nick, how you doing out there, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. We had a full day of sun today, and I didn't injure myself skiing for the first time this past weekend. So spent too much money, had a good time, though. We went to a fish restaurant, and don't get much good fish in the Midwest, and I had a crab-crusted grouper that I will be dreaming about for weeks. Gosh, it was so good. So had a really good time. Back to the grind now. And man, NFL Combine time. It's pretty much here.
Yeah, no, that's it's exciting. It's that real first. I guess you got the Senior Bowl. That's the start of the true off season. But this is the
don't sleep on the Shrine Game.
Well, okay, that's true. There's always a few guys that emerge from that. But no, it is. It's exciting time with the Combine coming up, and not so much for the drills on the field, but you at least get a little bit of information that you didn't have before, and you start sorting things out. That you finally start seeing how teams are going to start sorting some of these things out. So excited for that. But I just wanted to let everyone know I'm actually coming live from Denver, Colorado today. I'm maybe where some of you guys are. Happen to be out here today, and I drive back to Kansas tomorrow to drive back to Denver on Thursday. So yeah, I'll have two trips out in this direction. So if anybody wants to go grab a beer or something, hit me up, because I might need a beer after all this driving around.
Somebody buy Carl a beer.
Yeah. I forgot how much I hate rush hour traffic.
Oh man.
When I'm leaving the hospital and it says, "Oh, you're only 20 miles away." And then it says, "But that's going to take you an hour and a half." I'm going, "You gotta be freaking kidding me." But so yeah, no, I'm checked in, very excited about getting to this episode. So yeah, you're getting the view of my hotel room. So if you hear some cars in the background or doors or elevators opening up, that's what you got there. But also just want to let you guys know, make sure you're following us on Twitter, because if we don't get your question answered on here, I can guarantee you we will answer your question on Twitter. And so you can find me at Carl Dumler MHH and Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And make sure you follow our podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. And make sure you subscribe to our show and listen wherever you listen to podcasts. And just make sure you're also going over to milehighhuddle.com of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated, and know that this podcast is powered by Overtime Media. All right. Well, right off the bat, Paul, that is our man. I love you, man. Love you. Thank you very much for your donation, man. Really appreciate it. Hello to you, my friend. And very excited.
Paul.
Are you? So no, we should. But no, we really appreciate it. Really appreciate all of you joining us here. And I'm sure we'll have a few more getting in here as we get going a little bit more. But our topic today that we wanted to get to, is we already kind of hinted at, with Combine coming up, starts Sunday. Is that right?
I believe everybody's going to start getting in Sunday. Workouts won't start until Tuesday, but I mean,
right.
It's pretty much here. A week from today, we'll be deep in the broth of NFL draft season.
And of course, the Broncos are being a little bit unique, maybe ahead of the times, hopefully ahead of the times, leaving some of their coaching staff back to grind the film. Man, I feel good about that they're doing what we do. So probably a little better than what we do, but hey, nah. So no, it'll be interesting to see how that goes and how interviews go. But beyond that, we wanted to get to some storylines, or maybe some ideas about the draft that or players in the draft, maybe some comparisons between players, whatever it may be. Just get to some things that are intriguing to us about the NFL Combine. Maybe some things we can glean that I know you can't read too much into the Combine itself. I mean, we got to be careful. Let's not be the people that get too excited about the underwear Olympics. But there's still things that you can definitely learn. So, Nick, what is one storyline from the Combine that you're excited about?
Well, probably got to kick it off here with the battle for wide receiver 1, and guys that, we know about some of the speedsters, some of the athletic freaks, but on the field, I'm really curious to see how Jerry, Judy, and CeeDee Lamb not only look or test, obviously, but what their body type is. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb, is he going to have a long catch radius, the big hands? How does he run? If he's a a 4.55 guy, how does that impact his draft stock? Could he be the fourth wide receiver off the board despite, having a phenomenal season? And Jerry Judy, is he going to come in 185? Is he going to come in closer to 200? That matters. That kind of frame matters. He definitely looked like a frail guy at Alabama, especially last year, put on a little bit of weight this year. But, that's something I'm going to be interested in, just see those testing, because obviously the tape matters the most. But at the same time, you got to trust some of these metrics. I mean, you can see a guy who put up a lot of stats and struggled at the combine and did nothing in the NFL, like a guy like Laquan Treadwell. So it does matter. It's not the end all be all. But I think Lamb and Judy are two that I'm very interested in, especially that guy might, those guys might be the best player on the board when the Broncos pick at 15, if the Broncos pick at 15.
Yeah. Well, I want to go to two other wide receivers here, and I do just want to point out it's kind of cool. Maybe some of you guys others on here, I know we don't usually get to the comments quite as early as what I'm doing here, but I just wanted to kind of point out we got guys from all over the country. So it feels good because we're not obviously locals to Denver. I'm here, but I'm not local to it. And so seeing guys from Arkansas, New Mexico, North Carolina. Yeah. Hey, man. And so it's kind of cool.
My buddy Jacob Federer, who we go way back, elementary school. I think we both went as John Elway for Halloween a couple of times back at elementary school. So how you doing, Jake?
So no, it's kind of cool just to see everybody. We got an Iowa strong. Oh, there's your Jacob. Yeah. So yeah, you're Jacob. My college freshman floor, we had 4 Jacobs, and we had 2 of them with the same last name. So it was quite interesting. But
Puerto Rico, Texas, Kentucky.
Whoa,
man, North Carolina, this is awesome.
Yeah, love it.
Chad always says Missouri. There we go, lock country. But Chad always says that Broncos country is not a place; it's a state of mind. So it's everywhere. So love you guys. And I was also a little bit of bias towards those Iowa folks. But no, continue. We should probably get back on track.
Yeah, that just excites me to see everybody from all these different places. But anyway, I'm excited just to see Ruggs and Reagor, how their athletic profile compares. Because, I mean, Ruggs has a chance to be that guy that could either be the first wide receiver taken, that he could get himself into that top 10 conversation with running as fast as some people out there are talking of. I've seen some going, oh, he's going to run that 4.19. He's going to break the 4.2 spot. We'll see.
That would be something.
Yeah. But just kind of seeing the difference between those two, just how big of a difference is it? Because there are some people out there starting to say that maybe Reagor should be ahead of Ruggs because he is a little bit more of what I would consider a natural wide receiver, where he does have that. We've talked about it on this podcast a few times of just his ability in and out of breaks. He looks a little more fluid, and he just looks a little bit more what I would consider NFL ready compared to Ruggs. And so again, just their comparison, if they are close, then it really does bode well for Reagor of possibly being able to jump Ruggs. So that's definitely one storyline that I want to pay attention to. And I know I've seen on here a couple other Denzel Mims, Brandon Ayuk is another one. Just some of these guys, what is going to be their athletic profile? It matters some. It's not the end all be all, like you said, but it still does matter. And, if they come out here and run a 4.6 40, you're kind of going, what? Then you got to go back to the tape and say, is that really what they're running, or is their football speed faster than what they're showing here? And so, yeah, just some things that you got to pay attention to. And it really wouldn't surprise me. I know we've been talking about on here of how much we, our different grades for our different wide receivers or different positions on our big boards. It wouldn't surprise me after the combine, you've already talked about with Lamb, that he could be that third wide receiver taken. Yeah. Just because he's not going to probably test as good as Judy, as Ruggs, as Reagor. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they all test out.
Yeah, and this is a wide receiver offseason, it seems. But another guy that I'm really interested in coming out of the combine, not the on-field stuff, although if we can get to that point, I'm very interested. But Laviska Shenault, obviously he has the inflammation in his pubic. Now that's happy Valentine's Day, everyone. But yeah, no, that's something that's going to be an issue. Doesn't sound like it needs surgery, but it needs rest. And I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't tested all at the combine. And I mean, that could drop him out of the first round because your best ability is your availability. And there's some questions about his route running coming in, just the natural ability of him as a wide receiver. Is he more of a gadget guy? So that's an interesting storyline that I'm very much going to be wanting to follow. And if Laviska can test, then, all eyes on him because he's got a chance to be a freak. But I'd be really, really sad. Thank you, David. The pubic bone. No, not as fun as my joke, but factual, which counts. But it is politics season, so maybe not. But anyway, that's if Laviska can test, or if he can't test, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. But he's got to cross that medical threshold first.
Right. That definitely is going to play into it. So is there another storyline that you're kind of excited about? Let's get away from wide receiver since we're both kind of hyped on that. And of course, I mean, it is kind of the position everybody's in many ways expecting the Broncos to go there in the first round, or at least high first, second round, somewhere in there. Yeah. But of course, there's lots more that goes into a draft than the first round. So what are some other storylines that you're kind of excited about?
Well, the big one is going to be, I think, Tristan Wirfs. He's been my guy for a while now. We had Scott Docterman, who covers the Hawkeyes for The Athletic, on here to talk about Noah Fant. Let me see. That would have been May last year. And at the end of the podcast, I said, Scott, we're going to have you on a year from now talking about Tristan Wirfs after the Broncos draft him. And he said, I'm going to hold you to that. So that's going to be really an interesting area. And for Tristan Wirfs specifically, there's a lot coming out of the NFL that potentially he's viewed more as a guard. And that all comes down to, well, for me, obviously some of the traits are more guard-like, but I think the biggest thing is that arm length. Is he going to hit that 34-inch arm length threshold? Is he going to be closer to 33? And, that may sound crazy. How much is an inch actually going to matter? But these NFL folks, they have their thresholds. They have their baselines because of data, and it's all data-driven. So, there obviously are outliers, but outliers just add more risk. And the draft is as boring as it sounds, it's about risk assessment. And the earlier you take guys, you want to have the least amount of risk possible. So if Tristan Wirfs has, let's say, 33 and a quarter arm length, that's below that 33 and a half, 34 that you want. And that might push him inside. So that's something I'm going to be really interested in also, just to see if he tests as well as they say. I mean, he was a wrestler at Iowa, all-state track wrestling. He was also a swimmer, and he can jump straight out of the pool. Let me see. I think it's a 6-foot pool and stand straight up. Like he's a freak. But that arm length, I think, is going to be the biggest one coming out of it for him. And also, I'm curious to see. And it's crazy. It's again crazy season, silly season, underwear Olympics. Call it what you want. But there's been questions about Makai Bekhten, offensive tackle out of Louisville, his conditioning. He hasn't really taken his dietary, training seriously. There's some rumors of it, and he's had some bad weight. He's had to fight to get that weight down. And at the underwear Olympics, those guys walk in, and as awkward as it is, you can tell the guys who have been working hard, working on their bodies, working on the diet in the weight room, and the guys who have been going to McDonald's every day. And with Makai Bekhten, that's a question, and I think it's amplified at Denver. So I'm interested to see the body type there and just to see how he's working.
Right. I always think of Terrence Knighton, pot roast, when he would show up to camp weighing like 390. And they have to spend a month just trying to get him back into somewhat football shape. And they'd always get so mad of, man, if you would come in shape, just think of what we could do with you, because he was always, my bad. Just need a microphone.
Too much pot roast.
I guess so, man. It got a little overweight there, but so yeah, it does. That always shows up at the combine. Those guys that are willing to put in the work, and then you always kind of hear the questions of the guys of who did. If they didn't, why didn't they? That all plays into the evaluation. And so, yeah, that's going to be big for him. Another one for me, just kind of sticking with the inside offensive line. Well, let's get to the question here from Evan.
It's going to run out.
Yeah, I know. Really appreciate it, man, the donation here. But there we go. Now it came up. I did a mock where I trade back to Seattle's pick and got their second-round pick as well. Would you do that yourself? And if so, draft Rager in the first, then O-line.
It really depends on how the board falls, right? Like, you don't know who's going to be there. Where I don't even know what Seattle's pick is off the top of my head. Let me see. They lost.
Are they 24?
About 24. Okay.
26?
Because they beat the Eagles, and then they lost to somebody. I don't know. Green Bay. They lost to Green Bay. So probably about 24, 26, right around that Vikings pick as well, which is 25. So that's your prime and wide receiver range there with Laviska Shenault, Jalen Reagor, and also I think that's the beginning of really good cornerback range for the Broncos as well. A guy like Christian Fulton, a guy like Jeff Gladney, all really make sense there for me. And maybe even you're talking about some lower end offensive line there as well. Maybe Austin Jackson, maybe Josh Jones is in that range. Yeah. So, obviously getting that first and that second, that's nice. I do think, the Broncos already have 12 picks. At some point, you're going to have more picks than you have spots available on this team. And I know that there's been some talk that you want to overturn the bottom of the roster, but you also don't want to be drafting guys that don't even make the team. So maybe kicking some of that capital into 2021 or using some of that capital to just really play the board and move around in day two. So, I mean, if you can trade back with Seattle and get Reagor and then get offensive line, cornerback, defensive line later, I'm about it. I wouldn't even be that upset with Reagor at 15. I think it's maybe a little bit early, but again, this is before the combine. So, excuse me, I got a protein shake coming up there. That's I would not mind that at all. But I mean, if you can trade down, 10 spots and get another second round pick, that's not bad value at all.
Right. No, you're right. And then it does give you the capital to move up there in the mid rounds where this draft is really deep. I mean, you're thinking about all those positions of defensive line, cornerback, wide receiver. And so it gives you some options of things that you can do there. So I'm all for it. If they can find a trade partner that can give that kind of value back to the Broncos, then you definitely go for it. But at some point, you're right. You have to start then kind of compounding some of those draft picks, because at most, probably after free agency, you're looking at maybe 10 positions or 10 spots that are going to be open for the Broncos.
And UDFA has been good to Denver. Like, I don't want to, when you have that many rookies coming on, you're kind of like, well, why, as an agent, why would I want my client as an undrafted free agent to come to Denver? Because not only is he going to have to beat out some veterans and whatnot, but there's all those rookies that, I mean, we know darn well that if you're a rookie, a drafted rookie, that is, you're going to get every chance to make this team. So I just think it's probably a little bit more capital than you think. And, you see mock drafts where people traded back 10 times and they have 16 picks, and that's fun, but that's too much. You can't have a team like that and expect to compete.
Yep. No, I'm with you. All right. We've got another one here from Dylan Von Arks. Man, we're just getting right into the questions here. We've got lots going on. I mean, it is the combine time, so this is our time to talk draft. So really appreciate it here from Dylan. And he says, am I crazy for wanting Epinesa at 15 if he falls to us? Also, love the pod, love the pods, and Nick's a great Twitter follow. I can vouch for that. He is definitely that. But no, you're not crazy one bit. Before the season, Epinesa was considered a top 10 player for this upcoming draft. He maybe hurt his draft stock a little bit just with the start of his season, but I think that's a little overblown. I don't think he should have had his draft stock hurt. Just if you really watch the game, it's kind of like, who was it? Was it Mel Kiper that was saying that Chase Young hurt himself because those last 2 games he didn't have a sack? And when you get to the box score scouting, it just makes me question. Like Mel Kiper, I mean, I have to always give him credit because he was the guy that kind of really made the draft become what it is today. But
you can tell the difference between somebody who watches the tape to form those analysis and some that are more based on their connections and what they're told, and then can kind of just spew some uneducated narratives.
Right.
And I'll just call it what it is. He's the godfather.
He's reached that point in his career where it is more just his connections more than the work that he puts in. I think he used to put in a lot of different. Yeah, he is. And so take his thoughts with a grain of salt, but it's kind of the same with Epinesa, where there's a lot of people going, man, he didn't produce like he did the year before. Well, there's a lot more going on. He didn't have quite the talent around him on the defensive line in some ways. I mean, you can speak to that a little more than I can, but it's just, he's still a great talent. I think he'd still be a great fit for the Broncos, an underrated fit. I know some people question a little bit of him being undersized and things like that. And he's just, when you factor in, I was going to say, when you factor in his man strength, man, I always think of him as that old man of my dad. He's one of those guys that just is as strong as an ox. And he's not much bigger than me, but I'm like, you can I always feel like asking myself the question of, do I even lift when I'm around him sometimes?
But also, AJ grew up in a football family. I mean, his dad played in the NFL for a bit, was all Big Ten at Iowa. We know that the Samoans have a really good lineage to the NFL right now. You see it a lot in Utah, but Iowa kind of has a little bit there as well. And I think, 5 tech in a 4-3 defense, 7 tech, fine. But in Denver's, he's going to play that 5 tech position, and he's strong enough. I mean, you watch him when they line him up over a guard, whether that be, 3 tech, 2I, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he can dominate those guys. So I don't think that's crazy at 15 at all. And again, I harp on it on here, but I think a lot of people started off watching him at the beginning of the season. He's not producing the numbers. Okay, that's fine. But I find me a defensive player, especially a pass rusher, that finished the season, their last 3 games of the season, as well as Epinesa did. I mean, he had, I think it was like 12 and a half tackles in that Nebraska game, which is, I mean, that for a defensive lineman, that's incredible. I think 5.5 tackles for loss or something insane. Right. He absolutely just pulverized Austin Jackson in that bowl game. And he was really good in the Minnesota game as well. So I don't know. I think people are overthinking it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, when the talent got better around, or that he was facing, he played his best.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that he didn't play some of his best football when teams were triple teaming him early on in the season.
And that's a win in general.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Everybody else has an opportunity because of that. So, we've got a lot of Iowa love incoming. But here's another one from Sheldon Hunt. An inch matters, Nick. Ooh.
Back Valentine's Day.
Thanks for the great work, guys. AJ or Lamb at 15 for Denver?
I have Lamb higher. I don't know if you guys saw the podcast. Sorry about the Iowa love. I just saw your comment there, Jake. But I, again, go out against that Iowa love here. But I have Lamb higher on my big board. So Lamb is my wide receiver 2. He's been Carl's wide receiver 1, but judging based on some recent messages to me, that might be changing. But right now I'd have Lamb higher.
Right.
So,
I guess too.
Oh, you do?
What? I have Lamb higher than AJ.
Lamb? Okay, but here's the Stephen Baumgartner now.
And it's funny. We were having this conversation yesterday, was it?
Yeah.
And we were going back and forth on some of our conversation between these two players. And Nick finally goes, "Hey, let's just save it for the podcast." And so here's the question. Here we go. So I think I've reached a point now, and I know we just did our big board, but I've gone back and watched more Jerry Judy this last week again.
Shout out to Brad Kelly on Twitter, who released a bunch of all 22 of these guys, which, I mean, God, what a difference.
Right. And it does. When you can see what Judy does on every single play, it's amazing. I mean, how many times he's open. I told Nick something that really stuck out to me is, like, for Alabama over the last 2 years, they've had 3 different quarterbacks start. And all 3, when they were first starting out, Jerry Judy was their guy. And when a quarterback starts going to a guy early on in his career, it's because he trusts that guy. He doesn't always get through all of his reads because he just wants to get the ball out of his hand in a hurry. That timing isn't quite there yet. And so when you see them continue to target Jerry Judy over and over again, and they know this guy's going to be where he needs to be at the right time, and he's going to make plays. And it's so easy to see how advanced this guy is. And I think that's part of it for me of why I've moved Jerry Judy up ahead of CeeDee Lamb. Not that I don't think Lamb is NFL ready. I think he is, but he's not as NFL ready as Jerry Judy. I'm not sure that there's a player that I've scouted at the wide receiver position that is more NFL ready than Jerry Judy. We've talked about it, I think, last week on the show, of part of the reason that you'd go get a guy like Stephon Diggs is you can't trust a rookie to come in and be a day one starter, impact player all over the field, because wide receiver does take some time. And so getting a guy like Stephon Diggs makes sense in that you're helping Drew Lock probably more than any rookie wide receiver could, other than maybe Jerry Judy. And so that's why he has moved up my board, is just because he offers so much in 2020 and beyond. I think CeeDee Lamb has a higher ceiling overall, but we could argue that. But Jerry Judy, I think, like I said, he offers consistency year in, year out of what you're going to be getting from him. And I think he's going to run faster than I thought when I first scouted him. I saw some plays where he had guys that had probably the perfect angle, 3 or 4 steps on him, and he closed that gap in a hurry. And so it wouldn't surprise me if he ran below a 4.4 at the combine. And if he can do that, it's easily that he should probably be that first wide receiver taken. If he makes it there to 15 and the Broncos pass on him, I might throw a child tantrum at that point.
I don't think he gets past 12 with the Raiders.
I don't either. But if he does make it to 15, I even told you he's that one wide receiver I'm willing to trade ahead of the Raiders to get him. Now, I know you said how much it costs kind of depends, but at the same time, because I do think that he is such a valuable player and I don't want him on a rival, because I think he would fit perfect in that John Gruden offense, just like he'd fit perfect here in Denver. I know I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry I'm not giving you a chance on this. Just because I became very passionate about this week because I went back and forth, and it's been killing me to not have CeeDee Lamb as my top guy.
Well, I guess I need to be I do like Jerry Jeudy a lot. He's my number 1, but what's any good sports talk without having a little bit of contrarian opinion? And Judy, I'd love him at 15. Trading up, I just don't know if that's the way to go. I think this is a really good wide receiver draft class. You can find value later. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a first-round pick. You can find value day 2 in this class. I mean, Denzel Mims, Brandon Ayuk, KJ Hamler, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of guys that you can look for. And for me, Judy, I do like Judy a lot, but there are questions about him. I mean, he primarily won from the slot, the reason that I had Judy shoot up to my number 1 is once Sherman came in, you're going to see more 11 personnel. There's going to be more slot work there. But also with Judy, I guess the biggest question is, can he win in those contested catch situations? Can he win? That's true. Can he win in the – Jake's funny. Can he win in areas where – he's going to have guys around him. And you saw drops in his tape. That's something that not a lot of people talk about. I feel like a lot of them were more concentration stuff. But, again, in the NFL, he's not going to be as open. He's not going to have – he might even have a worse quarterback throwing him the football in the NFL than in college. So I just don't know if he has that ability to be a tough man. Is his game strong enough where, especially playing in the slot, you're going to have some times where that quarterback hangs you out to dry.
Yep.
That linebacker is going to be there. You're going to have to be big man football. And I don't know if that's in his game because I didn't see it as much. And that's not his fault. It just adds risk.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So do you see any questions here? Oh, actually, let's get back to some of these. Oh,
well, we got from Chase Walnut here.
What a picture.
Yeah.
Whoa. I absolutely love King of the Hill.
That's still my favorite line from that movie or from that show. And English, you speak English. But thanks, Chase Walnut. Appreciate your donation. Have you given up on Royce draft a replacement? It's more Royce is just another guy, Jag. And
he's going to take that Booker role.
Yeah.
It is what it is. He's the third running back. He's cheap. There's no reason to cut him, really, unless somebody really steps up where it's not worth for him to have that roster spot anymore. But he's cheap. There's still value there. It's just he's not a guy that you want in your top 2 running back rotation because, again, another reason I'm getting away from the Thunder and Lightning, he's a plotter.
Yeah.
He's only going to get really what is blocked for him. And after that, he's not going to create. So if you're going to lean on that run game in today's NFL, it's all about creating explosive plays, especially if you're going to go with a run game. That's what made San Francisco so good this year. That's what made Dalvin Cook on the Vikings so good. It's the explosive runs that they were able to create. So I just think Freeman, there's not enough juice there.
Yeah. I saw on the Mile High Huddle Facebook page, there were some thoughts on moving Janovich to tailback, running back, whatever you want to call it, position, and having him be that guy that pounds in between the tackles. And while I think you can give him a few more carries, I think he's proven himself enough to deserve some of that. I don't think the compliment to Phillip Lindsay is a guy that can pound up the middle. Phillip Lindsay's actually not terrible between the tackles.
I think he has better. I think his yards per carry average is better running in the A gaps than anywhere else.
Right. And so for me, the complement is more of a receiving option at the running back position. And Royce Freeman, he is a better receiver than Phillip Lindsay, but he's not an explosive option. You're not going to go and scare teams with Royce Freeman on the field in passing situations. And so I don't mind Royce being on the team. Like you said, he's cheap. That's what you want at the running back position. Yeah. But I do think that they need to find somebody that can make a bigger impact at the running back position, especially as a passer or as a receiver, than anything else for the Broncos.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. So I guess back to our original comment here, while Carl kind of goes through some of these comments. I can see him, the reflection off his glasses going there. But a guy also at the combine that I am interested in coming out of it, it's got to be Javon Kinlaw. You know, the 6'6", 310-pound monster from South Carolina could be very much in play for the Broncos at 15. He's a guy who's scheme versatile. He can play multiple techniques across that interior defensive line. But there are some real concerns coming out that his knee is something that could be an issue down the line. I mean, he probably should be okay that first contract, but you're not drafting, especially a guy at 15 overall, just for that first contract. You know, you're looking for a decade-long building block. So I do like Kinlaw a lot, but if there is an issue with that knee, we're going to find out about it coming out of the combine and get answers either way. So I'm, again, coming back to the medicals here, kind of like Laviska Shenault, but Kinlaw is one there. People aren't really talking about that knee, but I've heard him comment. I've seen comments that he said, you know, to people he works with, that he's never felt good about his knee. It's been in pain constantly. And that's something that could be an issue. I mean, that's scary as heck for a guy that size that's going to take that much pressure and power and just, you know, pounds on that knee over the course of a season. So Kinlaw scares me a lot, and the medicals will do a lot to answer one way or another for those questions.
Yeah. Another one for me, I'm looking at the interior offensive line players. There's kind of a hodgepodge of who loves who. There's different kinds of players. You got some guys that are good for gap scheme. You got some guys that are good for zone scheme. But just kind of seeing, because they're so closely graded in a lot of ways, how well do they test athletically? Because maybe that could be what does separate the pack here a little bit. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit with cornerback of how bunched up that entire group is. I know that's on your list of things that you're looking forward to here at the combine, but it's same with the interior offensive line. I've seen lots and lots of guys, big boards, and most of them have pretty much the top three players kind of at the top three, but they might have them completely reversed depending on how you're looking at it. And then the next group of players, it kind of depends on many different things. I mean, I've seen guys have Moody Matane clear up there at the top, and others that have him not even in their top 10 because of those injury histories. So a lot of that's going to play into what we find out here at the combine. And so, yeah, lots and lots of things to look forward to. Like I said, because there are so many groups that are bunched together, and those mid-round picks, since the Broncos are so heavy in that area, this is where it's going to really matter for them. Yeah.
So Carl, find us another question here, since I've totally put all that pressure on you. So if anybody has any complaints, put it on Carl. He's a nice guy. He can handle it if you have anything rude to say. But I'm the worst podcast co-host. But the next one for me, probably the big thing that's going to come out of this combine, is differentiating these cornerbacks. Obviously, Jeffrey Okudah, cornerback number 1. He's on a tier by himself. But the guy that after that, it's just, I mean, again, it's a hodgepodge. You got Cameron Dantzler, you got Jalen Johnson, you got CJ Henderson, you got Christian Fulton, you got Jeff Gladney, you got AJ Terrell. I'm sure I'm missing some guys as well. So this combine is going to be a really good differentiator for the type of skill set that a lot of these guys have. You know, are they going to be those length boundary guys? Are they super stiff where they can't play man? A guy like one that Jonah Tools and Jordan Reed over at Draft Network have discussed, Bryce Hall, a guy that a lot of people have linked to the Broncos because he's kind of a safety cornerback hybrid, but there's concerns about him and his speed. I mean, he might be a cover 3 specific limited kind of player because he could run over a 4.6 40, and running that slow, you probably don't have any man ability. And I know the Broncos defense, the narrative is that it's going to lead more on zone, but at some point you're going to have to play some man. I mean, you can't be a pure zone defense in today's NFL. You have to be able to do some man coverage. I mean, that's why those man cornerbacks go so early. So Bryce Hall, another one it's going to be huge, and we're going to get some definition for the cornerbacks outside of Jeffrey Okudah.
Right. And I'd seen somebody earlier asked if we would be willing to take Bryce Hall in the second. And
I think it was Andrew Jack, who is a friend of ours.
Yeah.
So shout out.
His athletic numbers are going to matter.
They are. Yeah.
Well, of course they are. But I mean, of the top cornerbacks, he looks like he could possibly fall the most. Just because, one, he has the injury, but two, there are a lot of questions about his athletic profile. Mm-hmm. And there's some that are expecting him to run in that 4.6 40 kind of time.
Not good for a quarterback.
No, it's not. And you can't have that going against a Tyreek Hill. That's a touchdown every time. If he gets not in coverage.
You're pretty much saying before every single snap that I'm not going to be playing man on this side of the field.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right. And so, again, his numbers are going to really matter when it comes to athletic profile there at the cornerback position. Mm-hmm. Really for me, there's a few positions that athleticism does matter. Some of the other positions, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter, but you can get away with a little bit more than other positions. But wide receiver, you need some athleticism. I'm sorry if you're running a 4.7 40, unless there's an injury of why you're doing it, because I'm thinking of who am I thinking of? Wide receiver for San Diego or LA, I guess now.
Robert Woods?
Keenan Allen. He ran a 4.7.
Wrong Los Angeles.
Yeah, sorry. But Keenan Allen, he ran a 4.7, but he had an injury.
Yeah.
So that plays into it. And then cornerback, that's another one where you need some athleticism. I mean, you're not going to
matter too.
Right. But all right. Well, Paul, man.
Paul.
We're not worthy.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Again, just really appreciate it. He writes this question: are you going to the combine this year? Neither of us are. Sorry.
I wish.
I'm trying to talk my wife into letting me go to the NFL draft. One of my best friends lives in Vegas. I'm like, hey, this kind of works out, honey. And Vegas plane tickets are like really cheap. It's like the one place they're like, hey, please come. We're going to make it as cheap as possible. So then you come spend lots of money. So we'll see if maybe I can get down there for that. But sorry, nobody at the combine this year.
Yeah.
But I'm expecting 5 new free agents by draft. Do you see that?
Chad and Zach might be going.
Okay, there you go.
Combine? Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, there you go. I'm expecting 5 new free agents by draft. Do you see that many before draft? Yeah. I mean, I expect there's going to be at least one cornerback. Depending, are you counting our free agents, or I guess these are new free agents? So I don't expect Chris Harris to be back. So cornerback, I expect a defensive lineman, maybe an offensive lineman, maybe a wide receiver. I'm trying to, there's another position.
Defensive line, interior offensive line, maybe 2 interior defensive linemen, maybe linebacker. It does sound like Joe Schobert is going to be re-signed by the Browns. But I mean, it really depends on Broncos will put out a lot of feelers. They'll kind of have an area of what they have budgeted based on the player, and it'll go from there. So it'll be interesting. But talking earlier, I want to bring up this one from Zachary Fuller here. Right now, I definitely think we should make a push for Isiah Simmons. Carl, we talked about it just a little bit ago. Jerry Judy, a guy that you think the Broncos should potentially make a move up for. And for me, I don't think that we can probably expand upon this after the combine. This is a good topic, but right now, Jerry Judy isn't a guy I trade up for. And to be honest, Chase Young that's not happening. But if there are any players in this class that I am trading up for, right now I only have 3 in the first round, at least, from 15 above. Things can be different from second round up, obviously. But right now, there's only 3 guys. I have Jeffrey Okudah, who, if he falls, I'm about it.
Yep.
Derek Brown, who, again, I really love Derek Brown. He's about as safe as it gets in this class. And the next guy is Isiah Simmons. And I think it has as much to do with today's league and combating the Chiefs as anything. You not only is it trying to stop Travis Kelce for 2 games a year, but it's Darren Waller and it's the advent of the RPO. I mean, the Chargers are about to probably get a quarterback, maybe could be Tua, probably Justin Herbert. That RPO game is going to be a part of that for them. And we saw the Raiders use it more last year as well. So I think if there's any players that I am making aggressive moves to move up for, it's one of those guys. Now, it obviously comes down to price. You're not giving up future first-round pick. Pretty much you're trading up into the top 10. The only time it's worth it is if it's a quarterback. But I think Isiah Simmons, as Zachary talked about here, is one that I would be very much into. And also he says if Isiah Simmons is there, it's a no-brainer. Absolutely. I mean, he's not going to be there at 15. He's going to be 6'4", 220, and he's going to run a 4.40. He's a bigger, faster version of Derwin James, which is, I mean, crazy to say, but it's just, I mean, I insane player, insane profile. I love him.
And I'd seen a question earlier. I don't know if I can find it here, but they're asking if there was any players at 15 that were there and the Broncos traded back that would be upset that they didn't just go ahead and draft him. And you just listed 3 of them right there that if they're somehow there at 15, I mean, if we've gone into a parallel universe and they somehow make it to 15, yeah, I would be upset if the Broncos are like, we can get more value. No, you take that kind of value, the top 5 player that somehow fell to you there at 15. I just, those would be 3 guys. I would be upset if Jerry Judy is there at 15 and there's that possibility and the Broncos decide to trade back, just because I do think he is such a perfect fit. CeeDee Lamb, I would be upset again. I know some of you are high on Henry Ruggs. I'm not quite as high just because I don't know how much production he's going to give us for year 1. I know you're higher on him than I am. If you ever listen to our big boards, you'll see that I was a little bit lower on him. I love him, but I'm not like as in love with him as I am Jerry Judy, because he is my Valentine, and CeeDee Lamb as well. But and then I did want to finish out Paul's comment here. You 2 deserve to be on Mount Rushmore of pods. You're that great, in my opinion. I really appreciate that, man. We try hard.
And happy President's Day.
We get an A for effort. So, but no, I really appreciate that. Definitely agree with this comment. Maybe I shouldn't put that one up. Sorry. Let's see. Littleton should be second priority after Byron Jones from Miller High Chubb. That's another name for that linebacker position. If Joe Schobert does sign with Cleveland, yeah, that's another name. He's very good in coverage. Wouldn't surprise me if the Broncos decide to go that direction, because they do have their thumper in AJ or Andrew or Alexander, whatever you want to call him. So
Predator.
Yeah, I can't make the noise. I'm sorry, guys. I just attempt. But Littleton, yeah, for a coverage guy, that would be a nice one for the Broncos to add. Definitely wouldn't surprise me, and kind of gives you a little bit more that you could spend at another position, like getting a Byron Jones and kind of go in that direction of going top dollar for another position. So
I want to counter. I don't think that I'm going to spend huge money at linebacker. I think that obviously you're looking for a guy, and if the opportunity presents itself, that you want to complement AJ Johnson with a more coverage-centric linebacker. But I feel like Todd Davis gets a bad rep around here. You know, he's not, if you didn't already have Alexander Johnson, who's bigger, has more upside and can blitz, which is something that Todd Davis isn't the best at. But Todd Davis in zones is not horrible. And he's also really, really good between the tackles. And I mean, you saw the difference last year after he really started to get in there and get healthy. He missed pretty much all of preseason, but he's the signal caller for that defense. So I do understand moving on from him, saving the $5 million, but it just feels like, what are the odds that you're actually going to improve the linebacker play and get it at a better rate than you are Todd Davis next year? I think it's a risky play. Yeah. So I could see them bringing in I'm going to totally butcher the last name, but I know the name Nick Karaszewski, not Mike Wazowski. Nick, the backup for the Chicago Bears, who Vic Fangio apparently likes a lot, and he played very well there next to Danny Trevathan before they used an 8th overall pick on Roquan Smith, because, I mean, a top 10 level linebacker, that's a different type of beast. But that's a name that if Joe Schobert does not end up hitting the free agent market, which, again, that seems to be more and more likely as we get closer to free agency, because the Browns are freeing up cap space, and apparently Joe Schobert is a guy that they are very adamant about bringing back and making him happy with a fair market value contract. So Nick Kwiatkowski, Nick K, another Nick K, not myself, but from the Chicago Bears as a name I would look out for. And that doesn't mean you're moving on from Todd Davis, but bringing in a third linebacker. But it's possible to move on from Davis too.
Yeah. I like this question from Bill 1293. Would you double dip at cornerback in free agency? Honestly,
I would. I would. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. But right now, I think that my dream, and we can talk probably some point as we get closer to free agency, but my plan right now, I'm paying Byron Jones big money. I think he's a great fit for this defense. He's still young. And, man, he could be a guy who's versatile. And down the line, you can move him to safety. I think he's equally good at safety as he would be at cornerback. And he can play some nickel as well. I mean, really a versatile piece there. And I think a lot of his lack of ball production, while it can be a sticking point for Elway in negotiation tactics, why you're not making him the highest paid cornerback ever. But I think a lot of it is the type of coverage that he was asked to do at Dallas, more of a trail technique kind of thing, where he's not allowed to read the quarterback's eyes and take the ball away as such. And also didn't have a Denver Broncos 2015 level pass rush in front of him where you're going to see stupid throws from quarterbacks, at least to that extent. So Byron Jones, yes. And then I'd look to pay maybe a B or C tier free agent, a guy like a name that I just keep coming back to, but Prince Amukamara, who knows this system. He sounds like very likely to be a cap casualty. If you can go in next year with your top three cornerbacks as Bryce Callahan, Prince Amukamara, and Byron Jones, I mean, you're talking about a totally revolutionized cornerback trio there, and Devontae Bosby providing good depth and upside there as well. So I wouldn't have any issue signing two cornerbacks.
Right. Well, and that kind of brings us then to this question. If we do pick up Byron Jones, do we still draft a corner in the second or early third round? I think the position is so depleted of talent.
And important.
Right. And it is important that, I think that's a real possibility because you don't know what you're getting from Callahan. He's been out of football for over a year now. And Bosby, I loved what I saw from him. But again, another guy coming off a pretty serious injury. And you just don't know if he's going to return to what he was. And beyond that there's not much. So you got to replenish the position. And if that means taking a guy there in the second, third round, where I do think there's going to be a lot of value for that cornerback position. I mean, this draft is actually pretty deep at the cornerback position. There's not as many top end guys like that of an Okudah. I mean, that is one, but the others are a lot of number two kind of cornerbacks. So if you compare them with a Byron Jones and then hope that Callahan gets healthy, that becomes a pretty darn good secondary when you got Simmons and Jackson back there as well. That all of a sudden that could become a top five secondary paired with a great pass rush coming from Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and whoever else they add for that defensive line. So definitely some great guys there. I thought this was a good one.
I picked one. Sorry. Did you see it?
That was the one I was going to pick. What?
Good job, Glenn.
Man, really good question then. Who are your top five dream free agents not currently on the team for this offseason? Well, I guess I'll Byron Jones, obviously.
Okay, Byron Jones.
Yeah, both of you and I have talked about it of him being a great fit for this defense, that versatility that he brings of what you can do with him in that back end and how much Vic Fangio likes guys that could be very versatile, that make things confusing for a quarterback having to try to figure out what a cornerback or a safety is going to be doing. I think that's got to be one. Chris Jones, I mean, if we're taking Price out of this picture, Chris Jones has to be in that top five, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, he's only 25 right now? I
believe so.
And 25. I know he's 25 and under. I know that. So you factor that in, and then the value of the position and just what he brings to the table and hurting a rival team and taking talent away from them. Yeah, I'll take that every day and twice on Sunday.
There's two for you. I'll throw out another couple. I think Brandon Scherff is a guy who could be pretty darn special. He's scheme versatile. He was a former top 5, top 10 pick, and he did finish the last 2 seasons with injuries, but that's the only reason you're going to even have a chance at him. Otherwise, he's not getting out of Washington, and he still might not. They still might tag him. So he's one that I'd be interested in. The same vein, Joe Thuney is another one. He's more left guard, and I do worry that he's a little bit more a product of Dante Scarnecchia and Tom Brady. I mean, that system there, they're going to put their offensive line in position to succeed as a unit, which, none of those guys are as good as the entire unit by themselves, where in Washington, I think it's a little bit more on the individual talent. So that's something that does concern me. But Joe Thuney is an interesting one there. And James Bradbury, if you missed out on Byron Jones, James Bradbury is an interesting name that's hitting free agency. I don't think the Panthers are going to bring him back, but I think he's a good scheme fit. Obviously, these are guys that we haven't seen AJ Boye hit free agency yet. Now, who knows what's going to happen with like Darius Slay, et cetera. But guys who are for sure going to hit free agency, those are some names that I would be very interested in.
Yeah. I'll throw out another one here for you. And I know most people are not really wanting to go the direction, but Amari Cooper.
I mean, I like him. He's only 25. I think he's a really good fit next to Sutton. Yep. I know there's some inconsistency there, but you watch the tape. I mean, he might be the best route runner in football right now. And right. I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet. I think he's still trending the right direction.
Right.
And I'll be honest, Michael Gallup, there's probably some CSU fans in here, but Amari Cooper was the straw that stirred the drink in Dallas. I mean, without him, that passing game was anemic. There's a reason that the Dallas Cowboys are likely going to tag him, because if they lose him, they know that passing game. I mean, he literally is what makes the passing game go. He creates space. I know that they drafted Zeke. You want to ride that running back, but second contract running backs, it's a scary land to be in. So I would not have any issue with Cooper.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Sorry, my thing just reset here. So I was about to click on a question, and then it all of a sudden went a little crazy there. I did want to get to this one from Black Knight 232. Would you re-sign Connor and move him to right guard and draft a center? I forgot to ask that to Chad and Zach the other day. Depends on price. That's always the factor. I like Connor. I think he did pretty decent for the Broncos. He's consistent. He's always healthy. All those things, yeah, he's dependable. That always factors into things. And he has versatility to play a center, to play right guard, wherever you need him to play. So definitely makes a lot of sense. But again, if he wants that top of the line, top 10 for the position, no. It's just not enough for me, especially when you got a guy like Munchak here at the offensive line coach position. I just can't justify spending that kind of capital on a guy like that.
Yeah. Sounds like he's going to be looking for a $10 million a year kind of contract, and just seems, reading the tea leaves, Broncos are not going to look to pay that kind of guy that kind of money. I think they're going to be more interested in a name that's been floated out a lot. That, I mean, guys, you'd be silly not to listen to at least some of the smoke. I know it's line season, but BJ Finney, that's a name that just keeps being brought up by those connected to the Broncos. I would be surprised if they didn't bring him in, because he can play center, he can play guard, and you can have him competing with Patrick Morris at center and Austin Schlottman at center/guard and Elijah Wilkinson at guard. So those are all interesting areas that they could go, and leaves the draft open. I mean, it's all about, free agency is not just about getting good players, obviously, but it's about setting yourself up for the draft, especially those tier 2 to 4 level players. If you can go into the draft without any dire needs, obviously you're not going to have a perfect roster, but any dire needs, then you can just let the board fall to you and take good players. And that's when you really can take advantage of the draft and build a good team.
All right. So we want to thank Terry Randall here. Thanks for your donation. Really appreciate it. You guys rock always. Go Broncos. State of being, or hashtag state of being. There we go. Hey, really appreciate it. I just want to say you guys rock. This is always fun. And yeah, it does look like, sorry, I wanted to get to this one. Carl's mic looks like he's recording his new album. So yeah, sorry, I'm on my laptop, and the camera, I don't know who designed this, but they put it at the bottom of my computer.
Not flattering. No, I'm just kidding.
It's true. Well, it's very true. So I'm sorry about that, guys. But no, it's that's why you're seeing it this direction instead of my usual one from my office. So hopefully next week get back to what we're used to. But all right, any other questions here you wanted to get to? We got a little bit more time here.
Oh, I see one here that go ahead. There you go.
I was going to do this one. ESPN news story on Chris Jones says they might franchise him. That's a real possibility. But they only have $13 million in cap, plus Mahomes' contract is looming, and they just signed Ford last year. I think you meant Frank Clark. Yeah, Frank Clark. Here's something to understand with the cap.
Make believe.
It is. I mean, you can manipulate it every single year. Now, there's a point where you probably have to kind of have a year where you maybe reset. New Orleans kind of did it there for quite a few years of redoing Drew Brees' contract, and they had that one year where they just had it all come at once. And so they had like $30-40 million in dead money. That's kind of how teams sometimes do it. When they're trying to compete, they will manipulate, they'll smooth over some of those cap numbers. They can redo contracts. So while they might only have $13 million right now, it doesn't take much to add a little bit more, and it doesn't take much to have his first year cap. I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it Justin Houston? If you remember right, the way they did his deal, his first year cap hit in his record-setting deal was $6 million. That's it. And so they can do that again with
base salary, not cap hit, because there was more with the signing bonus being prorated, if I recall.
Right, exactly. And so that cap number, they can make it work within their cap situation.
And they can free up $14 million by moving on from Sammy Watkins.
Right.
So there's your cash right there.
Who's the more important player? Sammy Watkins.
Sammy.
Yeah. They already have his replacement in
Nicole Harden.
Yeah. So that shouldn't be a big deal for them. But they will have to start making some decisions once they get Patrick Mahomes signed to that big deal. This is kind of, you have to expect though that they're going to go all in, because they know with that deal looming, this could be that last year where they can really load up talent wise around Patrick Mahomes. So just something to keep in mind. Chiefs should be really good again next year.
Yep. But they will, eventually they're going to have to pay Mahomes. What makes this might be the best roster that Mahomes ever plays on, but he didn't even have the most consistent Super Bowl. I think he can still get better. So that's what's the scary thing. But again, Broncos are trending up as well. And I think probably the same can be said about the Raiders, although their quarterback thing makes it very questionable. Who knows what happens there? If you've listened to the Building the Broncos podcast or anything I've done over the past 3 years, I have absolutely just hammered home that you're not doing jack until you have quarterback squared away. So that's going to be the biggest chicken that'll come home to roost, I guess, for the Raiders. And until then, who knows what's going to happen. But I see Glenn here really doing a good job here on Facebook, being active. Sammy Watkins, the interest of the Broncos brass, if he's released, absolutely. I think he'd be a guy they'd be interested in. Obviously, you're not going to pay him a break-the-bank deal, but since he's going to be released, he's a street free agent, and that means the Broncos can coop some compensatory picks instead of signing a unrestricted free agent. So definitely that's part of the game. That's what the Patriots have done for years, and they just keep getting. I think the Patriots don't have a second round pick this year, maybe, but they have like two of the top compensatory picks because they lost Trey Flowers and Trent Brown. So just turning in talent, or bringing in guys, getting the max out of them, letting them walk for big deals, and then bringing in more picks. So that's good stuff.
Right. No, and like I said, he'd be a pretty decent fit here with the Broncos. You can sign him to a deal that is kind of a prove it deal. A lot of incentives based on what he can get stats wise, how many games he plays, all those kind of things. I think any team that signs him, that's probably going to be a part of his next contract. Mm-hmm. But he when he is healthy, he is a game-changing wide receiver. Yeah. And so wouldn't mind him here in Denver. But like I said, contract matters. You're not going to go pay him top of the line like the Chiefs did. That obviously they're regretting that kind of decision.
Maybe not. They won a Super Bowl.
Well,
he made Richard Sherman look silly in that one play. So you didn't get back what you paid, but you have Patrick Mahomes. Again, the almighty rookie quarterback contract.
Yeah.
You can do stupid things and have no repercussion because you're paying diddly for a huge return. This is going to be a topic for another day, but maybe even next week. Broncos window might be right now, because if you have a guy like Teddy Bridgewater saying, I'm looking for $30 million, and you have a guy like Dak Prescott saying, I'm looking for $36 million APY, allotted player value, or I think that's what it stands for, but per season. The Broncos have Drew Lock for 3 more seasons where he's going to be cheap. Maybe this is the time.
Yeah. I had
maybe we can build up the team, and 2 or 3 years from now we can be competitive. Well, your window's gone.
Yeah.
The rookie contract window's gone. So I'd say go for it.
Right. I had a Patriots fan the other day that told me that he was hearing that the Patriots were going to sign Teddy Bridgewater for $10 million a year. And I about fell out of my chair laughing, because I was like, yeah, that's not happening. I'm sorry. You keep dreaming.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's not going to happen. He's going to get a record-setting deal. Not a record-setting, but I mean for being a backup to go to that. It's kind of like when Osweiler went and got $18 million as a backup. And so, and I would take Teddy Bridgewater over Brock Osweiler every day of the week. But
here's a good question. Mackenzie Alexander, 1-year prove-it deal. He's one of the guys that I'd be interested in. I mean, there's a number of names. You got like Denard, maybe Trey Waynes. There'll be a number of guys that'll be, if you miss out on the Byron Jones, or maybe not even miss out on the Byron Jones, but you're looking to bring in a guy that can compete and provide some depth for your top 3 cornerback groups. He's a name I would definitely be interested in. So, and also got to give a shout out here to Kareem Gomez. He's my boy. How you doing, Kareem? Bring back Emmanuel Sanders. Guys, I know that Emmanuel Sanders is a pretty good, vibrant social media persona, but I think he burned some bridges on the way out. I don't think that the Broncos will be interested in bringing him back. I think that he was, just to call a spade, I think he was an issue for the locker room down the stretch, and I think they were happy to get him away from the likes of Phillip Lindsay and Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, I was at the day at training camp when him and Cortland Sutton got into a fight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's messaging me going, what's going on? I hear there's a fight. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess there was. But, yeah, there's some issues there. I don't think he needed a new location. I think it was kind of good for both sides. That was one of those both sides won with the deal. Yep. And I thought this was a good one from Bill here. Hicks or Calais Campbell, better chance as a Bronco if they are available.
Let me find a coin to flip.
Kind of who's going to give the Broncos the better deal?
I would say Hicks is probably more likely just because Fangio knows him. But I think Campbell's more likely to hit the market. So, yeah, I'd be fine with either.
And hashtag let Carl go to the draft. Yes, please. I might just go whether I'm going for Mile High Huddle or not, just because I like going.
You just want to go golf
a little bit. I'm tired of the cold, man. I got here to Denver and there's like snow everywhere, and going down interstate, I had to go like 60 at points because there was still snow at different places. I know.
It's windy.
I know. It's just windy and cold there, or windy and hot, one of the two.
And we probably should get out of here pretty soon. One more from a couple more here. A couple questions. I'll flash them quick. Trade for Brandon Cooks. Rams need cap relief. What about Taylor Gabriel? First, we'll go to Brandon Cooks. If Brandon Cooks is available, I am definitely interested in making a call for him. He can bring some speed. He can be an outside Z player. Definitely a good fit for what the Broncos need. And I don't understand how he's been dealt to so many different teams. I mean, he's been such a good wide receiver. I think he had 1,000 yards and like 10 touchdowns at like the New Orleans, and then with the Patriots, and then with the Rams. I don't understand how he keeps getting tossed around, but he's definitely one that I would be interested in trading for. He's kind of a little similar to Stephon Diggs, where that contract, a lot of that, the signing bonus is stuck on that other team's cap. So you can probably get a better deal. As far as Taylor Gabriel, I would be interested for him for the Broncos, but I think he was probably a better fit when they had Scangarello because it was just a more obvious fit. I mean, his best seasons were under Kyle Shanahan with the Falcons. So we'll be, obviously looking to bring in somebody. You don't want to go into the draft where Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton are your 1 and 2. You need to supplement it probably somehow in free agency, but definitely would be interested.
Yeah. Charter bus for Mile High Huddle.
And you're driving.
Hey, I drove school bus in college. So
man.
That's like, I could actually do that if they let me there in Vegas. Probably not. Well, Vegas, they let you do about anything in Vegas, right? If you pay enough money. We actually talked about that not too long ago, of getting a few of us down there, and we figured Chad might not like that all of us in one place. It might get to a little too crazy.
Some adult beverages.
What? But yeah, that would be fun. Road trip to Vegas. Yes, that would be great. I would love it. So we'll see what all happens with that. Like I said, I might just go to Vegas just to go to Vegas because the draft's there and it's cheap, and it'd be fun to go see them boat those prospects out there to the stage.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, Carl, your video quality is starting to dip a little bit, and we're over an hour, so that's probably going to wrap up today's episode of Building the Broncos, the live stream. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Make sure you head on over to Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. We will have another episode for you guys, not a live stream, but an episode. You can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to have John Ledyard on to talk some trench players for the Denver Broncos, options at 15 and in the top 100. Ledyard's former member of the Draft Network, been covering the draft for a long time and gracious enough to come on and have us interview him for about a 30 to 40-minute podcast. So excited to have him come on. Also, you guys, call to action. If you haven't done this yet, go over to iTunes, find Huddle Up, and leave us a comment and a rating, because I'll admit I go back there and check it, and good or bad, we really do appreciate the feedback. So if you could go to iTunes and leave us a rating and a comment, that would mean a lot to us, especially if you can, if you prefer Eric and Lance's podcast, if you prefer Zach and Chad, leave a comment on there. Let us know. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast, wherever you listen to your shows. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. So, Carl, anything you want to talk about before we get on out of here?
No, just seeing a lot of guys say thanks, but thank you guys. We love this. I booked a hotel in Denver partly just to make sure I didn't miss this show, because I love you guys and love doing this. Love talking draft and obviously football whenever we can. And so, yeah, appreciate you guys all joining us here today. It's been a great show, and I can't wait for Thursday's episode either.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So thanks everybody who joined us today. Again, really appreciate you, and great job being, again, I know calling it out, but being civil in the comments. It's a nice little safe space. And I guess we saw one question here. At this point, Carl, record for next year for the Broncos.
Sometimes I feel like this record's kind of a cop out when I think a team's going to take that next step, but 10-6. I think it's
baby.
That's what?
Undefeated. First round bye all the way.
But no, I think that's the next step. And I think with the money that they have, the draft capital they have, I don't think they can beat the Chiefs for the division quite yet. Unless the lock takes that giant leap, like we saw Patrick Mahomes in his second year all of a sudden become MVP. But I think 10-6 is a very attainable record for them this next year.
The NFC West has had arguably a top 3 quarterback in football for the past 4 or 5 seasons in Patrick Mahomes. Last 2 years, the NFC West has made it to the Super Bowl, but it has not been the Seahawks. Los Angeles Rams, San Francisco 49ers, 2 teams that made some pretty incredible turnarounds the year before they made the Super Bowl as well. So it's the offseason, baby. It's time for optimism.
I think you're talking about Russell Wilson, not Patrick Mahomes.
I say Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, Russell Wilson. You're right. But, you never know. It's the offseason. It's time for optimism. So on that note, probably going to have to get out of here. Going to have to go check out, see how the wife's doing. And you should probably, I don't know, whatever. Carl's going to go work out. I already got my workout in. So
yeah, I got to go with some supper and workout. I don't know which one's going first.
Are you trying to build muscle or are you trying to lose fat?
Probably better lose some fat.
I would work out first.
All right.
That's my little advice. So thanks everyone for coming on, and go Broncos. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for joining us on the live chat, and we'll see you a week from now. Go Broncos.